calendar turns to November, which means a lot of decisions are on the horizon for the Cincinnati Reds. The first couple coming last night. Nick, happy November. What were you for Halloween?
I was a dad trying not to get my kids hit by traffic.
The most important job.
Successful. I will make sure I'm successful. So,
okay, welcome in everybody.
What about
Chatterbox.
You? What about you?
Yeah, I went in my typical sweatshirt and jeans, and just tipped my cap and said thank you on behalf of my child who refuses to be considerate and say thank you and do all the right things. But here we are nonetheless. Chatterbox Reds. Look, Nick, I don't think this is necessarily a super shocking show that we're going to be having, but still worthy conversations, news coming out over the last several days, depending on when you're listening to this podcast. But we'll start with, I guess, maybe some news that some folks wish would have happened earlier, maybe even during the season, and that is Santiago Espinal removed from the 40-man roster. Officially, he is outrighted to Louisville. Explain to everybody what that means and just your general take on the Santiago Espinal era in the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, so he's removed from the 40-man roster basically to create a roster spot as the Reds are running low on those. I think there's still, if I counted right, we'll still have one left, depending on how many players they pick up on options and whatnot coming down the road. But removed from the 40-man roster, typically when a player is removed from the 40-man roster at this stage, they end up electing free agency. So that's what I would expect would happen with Santiago Espinal. I guess it's possible it goes up otherwise, but I would expect that he will be a free agent. And the Reds just went ahead and did this now as opposed to waiting till the non-tender deadline. Maybe they want that roster spot early. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe they're just trying to do right by Santiago Espinal and allow him to be a free agent when free agency starts, which is 5 days after the World Series ends. So it'll be starting here next week.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this is going back in time real quick. Espinal obviously acquired from the Blue Jays prior to this past season. Defensively, obviously, was one of the better defenders for the Cincinnati Reds team and had flexibility on defense. But as the year went on and his bat continued to slump, his role continued to slack. And there are other guys that just kind of stepped in and took advantage of opportunities that Santiago Espinal really didn't have a role moving forward, it felt like at this point.
Yeah, it's very puzzling too. Like, and this isn't a surprising move. I mean, I said there was no way the Reds are going to tender Santiago Espinal a contract, expected to make $2.9 million. Like, that's just not going to happen with where the Reds are. After they got Brian Hayes, Santiago Espinal became completely expendable. And it does make it even more frustrating as to why he stayed on the roster all the way till the end of the season. Got a couple at-bats, like 3 at-bats in September, if I remember. It was not a lot. And it makes it puzzling why you didn't cut bait earlier. But it is what it is at this point. What I will say about Santiago Espinal, I do want to say there is positives with Santiago Espinal. I don't want to just like pile on this guy. Actually, that the trade for Santiago Espinal was one of the smarter trades the Reds have made. The Reds traded Chris McElvin for him, a guy with currently has a mid-4 ERA, still an A-ball, not a top 30 prospect by the Toronto Blue Jays. Of course, they picked him up right after Matt McLain was injured and ended up being out for the year, and Welve Marte was suspended. And he was really good in his role in 2024. Ended up playing every day, put up some kind of unsustainable numbers, but hit lefties really well, which is something he's had a track record for. But then just as the 2025 season went on, he just became unnecessary. You have Brian Hayes, you have a healthy McLain, you have Sal Stewart. You also now have CES now as a third base option. He's been playing a lot of third base. But, look, the Espinal situation could have looked a lot different if Matt McLain would have gotten hurt, like a lot of people thought was a possibility. Would have gotten hurt and stayed hurt for a large portion of the year. And then you would have basically had a Gavin Lux, Santiago Espinal platoon at second base, which would have been, kind of fine. It would have been better than anything else the Reds had. So Matt McLain's health kind of made the Espinal on the roster look worse, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it just became unnecessary. And, I think one of the more frustrating pieces of Tito's tenure was his tendency to go to defensive replacements early in games. Santiago Espinal obviously oftentimes was that defensive replacement either at third base or before they got Brian Hayes or otherwise. And so, it was definitely frustrating. And I know you retweeted a couple tweets from earlier in the season about Santiago Espinal getting key at bats and just, unfortunate he was put in those situations that really are not what he was intended to be on this roster for. So nonetheless, I think at this point, you tip your cap. You thank Santiago Espinal for his service, and you wish him the best of luck in free agency. But $2.9 million doesn't make any real sense, and he was one of those pretty clear non-tender candidates coming into this offseason. So no real surprise there. And before we get into another non-surprise move, we want to take a quick break and say thank you to our sponsors.
Deep South Commodities is a proud supporter of Chatterbox Reds and our Deep Drive of the Day, and DSC is a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. Thanks as always to our friends at DSC. And we also want to remind you that you can call or text 988 anytime, day or night. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is a place to get support for anything related to mental health. Whether it's an immediate crisis, simply wanting to find out how to connect with care, or anything in between, it's a 100% confidential, secure, and anonymous way to reach out for help when you don't know where else to turn. To connect, call or text 988 or visit mantherapy.org to get help. It's okay not to be okay.
All right, Nick, Santiago Espinal, not the only Red that was outrighted to Louisville this past week. Ian Gibaut also outrighted to Louisville, removed from the 40-man roster. Unlike Santiago Espinal, we already have news that he has cleared waivers and has elected free agency.
Yeah, Ian Gibaut, this one shouldn't come as any surprise, been hurt. This is kind of deja vu for Gibaut. He was actually non-tendered. He made it a little bit longer in the process last year. He was non-tendered and then ended up coming back to the Reds on a minor league deal in late January. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again. I just don't see Ian Gibaut getting a major league deal. Espinal could get a major league deal. I think there's a team that might be willing. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to pay $2.9 million, but someone might offer him $1.50, like Colorado Rockies or the Chicago White Sox, a guy that you could play every day that wouldn't embarrass you. And that might sound silly to people, but like there are bad teams that know they're going to be bad that just kind of want players that don't embarrass you. A guy that kind of comes to mind is a guy like Donovan Solano was on the 2022 Reds. Just the guy was a professional that wasn't great, but did that. So yeah, I would be very shocked if he gets a major league deal. His velocity was down a little bit last year, but again, he was hurt the whole year and didn't have any time to come back. Roller coaster season, obviously close was the closer on opening day and blew the save and didn't really get to do a whole lot with the Reds, but it was a really good pickup for the Reds. Craig, a guy the Reds picked up on a minor league deal, was great for the Reds. I mean, he was so good in 2023. And I'd love to get him back on a minor league deal. And as we're going to talk about here in a second, I think the pitchers that the Reds add on minor league deals for their bullpen, they're going to need a lot of them. Might be one of the most underrated. I think it is the most underrated storyline this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, Ian Gibaut projected in the 1.5 million range, certainly pretty obvious move here from the Reds. Nothing surprising, but it kind of does lead you into the conversation, and we've talked about this before, so we won't spend a ton of time on it, but the truth of the matter is that this bullpen and its outlook for 2026 is somewhat bleak. And for those of you watching on YouTube, Nick's putting a graphic up kind of walking through it, but the rotation is what it is. But from the bullpen perspective, you look at the guys that were part of this bullpen in 2025, Emilio Pagan, certainly at risk of losing him, Sam Moll, Brent Suter, Scott Barlow. You're really only left with Tony Santillan, Graham Ashcraft, Connor Phillips. You can throw Zach Maxwell, Luis May in there, Lyon Richardson, a lot of unproven guys. So from my perspective, at least, obviously the power bat is a need, but filling out this bullpen might be one of the most important tasks for this Reds front office this offseason.
Yeah, and it's probably got to be a mix of getting a couple veteran guys. And it could possibly be some of the ones they had. They could re-sign Emilio Pagan. I don't see it happening, but you know what? Let's say Emilio Pagan's market doesn't turn out to be what he's expecting it to be. I could see a scenario where he comes back to the Reds in the 11th hour in the offseason on a 1-year deal or something like that. Scott Barlow, I don't think he's worth $6.5 million, but you know what? It's actually 5.5 because he has the $1 million buyout. But I don't know, man. He looked really good at the end of last year after I thought his arm was dead. So
well, he was really good at the beginning. Then he had a little stretch there in the middle of the season, towards the end, but middle end of the season that he went through a tough stretch and then finished off pretty strong, it felt like, and earned his way back into Tito's good graces.
Yeah, the Scott Barlow is trying to predict, I think, the market. Really, okay. So how tough is the market? My guess is I don't think they pick him up at that much money, but it's possible. If they just think, hey, you know what, relievers might be pretty expensive, it might just be better just to take them. But anyways, they're gonna have to pick up some veterans, but there's no way the Reds are gonna have enough in their budget to pick up enough veterans to completely fill out their bullpen and have some depth. So they're gonna have to get some minor league signings. And they're going to have to hit on at least, I think, maybe 2 of them. And that's in addition to these unproven guys becoming proven, hopefully, in 2026. There's a lot of talent there. I mean, there's not a single pitcher, Tony Santiago, Graham Ashcraft, Connor Phillips, Zach Maxwell, and Luis May. There's not a lack of talent there. I mean, those are 5 of the more talented relievers that you could think of. But outside of, I guess, Tony Santiago is the most proven at this point.
Yeah. Tony Santiago certainly has to be the favorite going into 2026 to be your back in the bullpen. How they fill it out from there is to be determined, because I don't know that there's a whole lot of guys that have defined roles at this point. You'd love to see Connor Phillips continue the development that he had at the end of this past year. But again, obviously Connor Phillips was in that position for a reason. He struggled mightily last year. And even early on this year. So will be interesting to see what happens there and go from there. But it all begins on November 6th, Nick. And that's when free agents can actually begin to sign. Obviously, communication can happen before then, over the next 5 or so days. And they can start those negotiations, but nobody can actually officially sign until November 6th. So let's take a quick look at this offseason calendar, Nick.
Yeah, we have official dates now. When we did the last show, I had to say they were unofficial, and I was pretty close. I was pretty close on them. But yeah, of course, free agency officially begins because there's a Game 7 of the World Series. It's 5 days after. It's November 6th. So next Friday of this week, if you're listening at the beginning of your work week. The GM meetings are November 10th through 13th. There's not usually a whole lot of that actually happens at that, but we'll keep our eyes on that. November 18th, this will be a big one. This will be something we will be talking about, doing a show for sure when we get closer to the deadline to protect players ahead of the Rule 5 draft. I'm going to wait for Mark Sheldon's article to come out because he always has someone in there that I didn't think of that he's usually right on, and we'll talk about that. And that's when we'll do a show for that. Then November 21st is the non-tender deadline, or the deadline to tender contracts for arbitration-eligible players officially. So that's, I guess, the Gavin Lux of the world is maybe the biggest potential there. And then the big one, December 8th through 11th, the winter meetings in Orlando. Sometimes, Craig, they are wild and there's trades left and right. Sometimes it's more of a groundwork type thing. But for a team in the Reds that I expect to be very aggressive this offseason with trades, that is going to be a very, very big 3 days. And then, of course, Reds Fest in January and spring training not that far away in February.
Yeah, obviously some decisions to be made on Rule 5. Leo Balcazar in the Arizona Fall League so far this year has played in 17 games. He's hitting .353 with an OPS sitting at .846. He has 12 RBIs on the year. Cam Collier, another candidate there to be protected and be added to the 40-man roster. He's hitting .245 with a .403 on base percentage, .780 slugging percentage. Both guys that certainly the Cincinnati Reds are keeping their eyes on. Not necessarily a Rule 5 guy, but Alfredo Duno, just for a quick update from Arizona. Duno has played in 11 games. Batting average not necessarily there at this point, hitting just a $188 with a 372 on base percentage and a 591 OPS.
You still have one more year on Collier. Collier is not till 2026. We'll have to make that decision.
Okay. Well, on behalf of our bet with Trace that says that Cam Collier is going to debut before the end of 2026, I'm going to go ahead and say that he's going to be on the 40-man roster at some point this year anyway.
There you go.
But yeah, it's been interesting to see those guys, and certainly Leo and Cam have played well. And I got to be honest though, seeing some of those numbers from Arizona and some of the gaudy stats that are being put up by some of those guys out there, definitely interesting to see guys like Kevin McGonigal with an OPS over 1,000, Max Anderson, Parks Harbor all over 1,000 as well. It's definitely been fun to keep an eye out in Arizona as that goes on. So if you haven't already, make sure you check out the Arizona Fall League website for all those stats. And certainly I believe that season should be wrapping up pretty soon. I don't remember the exact date that it ends, but it obviously ends before the Rule 5 draft deadline, I would imagine, right?
I think it goes like the whole month.
All the way through November? Let me look.
Yeah, there we go. Full season schedule. Oh, that's not the right one.
Through November 15th is the championship.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's got a couple weeks.
Yep. So make sure you check that out. I don't want to mispronounce the team name, so I'm not going to begin to act like I can tell you what team the Reds players are on.
Peoria. They're on the Peoria team.
Just Peoria.
I don't know the nickname.
Juventus or something like that.
Java something.
Yeah, it definitely starts with a J. Anyway, as always, Chatterbox Reds is your home for all breaking news and rumors throughout the entire offseason. Certainly as free agency begins here on November 6th, I would expect that we'll be starting to do some more regular content and certainly keeping up on a lot of those rumors as they start to fly when free agency begins and the general managers meeting commence in Las Vegas. But until next time, for Nick Kirby, I'm Craig Sandlin. This has been Chatterbox Reds. We appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure you click the like button. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. We appreciate the support for sure. And make sure you give the same support to all of our great Chatterbox content creators. They're doing a great job. And there's a lot of teams that are making a lot of great noise this season as well. So make sure you give all of our content creators a like and a follow. And until next time, go Reds.